Welcome to our modern control room. Boy, times sure have changed. We even have a digital team now focused specifically on getting that news to your tablet or phone. I tell you what, if you watch WECT News, the chances are pretty good if you watch a story that I've done, the entire thing shot on the phone. Talk about the power of technology in your pocket, huh? Well, times much different 50 years ago. Here's legendary broadcaster Ken Murphy.
When I started at WECT, the 6 o'clock news consisted actually of 3 separate shows. Each had its own title and opening and closing theme music. Carolina's Reporter came first, then Let's Look at Sports, and finally, the weather. The news block was like that until around 1970. That year, the real growth of the news department started. As late as 1967, there were only 3 of us in news: a photographer, a reporter, and me. When Fayetteville and Lumberton became part of our coverage area in 1969, we decided to include news of that region in our newscast. What began as a report on undeveloped film mailed from Fayetteville evolved into regular live broadcasts during the 6 o'clock news. We also broadcast regularly from Myrtle Beach.
Since that time, some of the stories we cover have come full circle.
There's growing support for a push to bring passenger rail lines to Wilmington.
Recently, a story making headlines has been the possibility of rail service returning to Wilmington. The possibility of connector service to Raleigh running 3 times a day. But it was back in 1970, the historic Atlantic Coastline Railroad headquarters was demolished. The property, now the campus of Cape Fear Community College. Its hub called Union Station for a reason. The following year, 10 civil rights activists were falsely convicted for nearly a decade following a 1971 riot in Wilmington over school desegregation. History remembers them, most of them high school students at the time, as the Wilmington 10.
Bombings and violence in the 1970s, right here in Wilmington.
A history lesson of the violence caused by white supremacists can be found. WECT reflected recently on several bombings that went off throughout the city.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
The 1970s also remembered with national events. President Nixon's resignation following Watergate, the fall of Saigon, and the end of the Vietnam War. Our nation's bicentennial.
There are 8 National Register Historic Districts in Wilmington.
Our thriving downtown is actually a renaissance. It's come full circle as well. In the 1970s, the Historic Wilmington Foundation, which has been around for a while, started buying up property along 2nd Street. That caused a domino effect in creating an attractive urban neighborhood, as 7 other houses in the immediate area were rehabbed by their owners. Hilton investing in the port city with the opening of a hotel along the Cape Fear River, a reality that stemmed from the Waterfront Renewal Project, and that hotel still stands, rebranded as the Ballast, and a milestone in the making. Here's Francis Willer, Hoggard High School, class of 77.
I'm Mayor Bill Safford, do hereby proclaim Tuesday,
now celebrating 42 years of you inviting her into your homes across southeastern North Carolina. The late 1970s saw the arrival of ENG equipment, or electronic news gathering, a fancy way of saying that tech made it easier to hit the road for reporters and photographers to get you that info ASAP. That decade, news gathering changed forever.
Which brings me back to the phone in my pocket and what the future will bring. We'll have to wait and see. In Wilmington, Bill Murray, WECT News.